Youth Conference titled Welcome everyone to the side event of the 9th International Youth Conference titled Amplifying Youth Power and Meaningful Youth Engagement. UNESCO Global Youth Community welcomes all. We are thrilled to have you all here today, and now I would like to invite our chairman of the UNESCO Global Youth Community to welcome this event. So, Mirwais is the co-founder and chairman of the UNESCO Global Youth Community. He has worked locally and internationally with various NGOs and co-founded the Young Forum of the German Commission for the UNESCO in 2021. Mirwais is currently studying political science at the University of Bamberg, specializing in international relations. He holds a bachelor degree in political science from the Wensberg University. Mirwais is passionate about youth participation in decision-making processes, social inclusion, and advocacy. Welcome, Mirwais.
Thank you so much, Ilanit. Hi, everybody. My name is Mirwais, and on behalf of the UNESCO Global Youth Community, I would like to welcome you all to this very special event, our first side event at the International Youth Conference in the year 2024. First of all, I extend my warm greetings to the entire audience and our panelists, composed of amazing young leaders from around the world. It's so great to see you and to welcome you all to our panel discussion, Amplifying Youth Power and Meaningful Youth Engagement. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the International Youth Conference team for inviting us and for the opportunity to organize this side event. We are thrilled to be here today, even if it's just an online format. Youth can no longer be left behind. We are essential actors and partners ready to take responsibility and leadership to find solutions and tackle the issues of today and tomorrow. It is time for our generation to take the lead and bring positive change. We are not just the leaders of tomorrow. We are the leaders of today. Our panel discussion today, Amplifying Youth Power and Meaningful Youth Engagement, is an opportunity to highlight the incredible work being done by young people, the young leaders around the world, on a voluntary basis, to share these amazing experiences, to learn from each other, to discuss the challenges and barriers to youth participation at the global level, and also at the institutional level. Thank you so much, and welcome to our panel discussion. Enjoy the event. Ilanit, to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mirwais. Now, for our next, do we have a video? Okay, we have a presentation from a representative of UNESCO Global Youth Community. They will provide insights into the origins, membership, purpose, milestones, and achievements of the GYC since it's established. Please, let's welcome Laura and I. Laura is a public health professional passionate about youth civic engagement programming. She works as a consultant supporting a U.S. National Institute of Health study along COVID, but she has previously worked with UNESCO to implement the Global Youth as Research Initiative of COVID-19. And she is a member of the Global Youth Community Steering Committee. In my side, I will be also joining Laura. I'm an Ecuadorian leader activist devoted on enhancing, communicating, connecting, and inspiring. I believe that education is the key to unlocking potential and achievement a sustainable future. As a member of the UNESCO Steering Committee, I collaborated with UNESCO for several years now. I've coordinated and led numerous initiatives with the UNESCO Chair Sustainable Development, driving projects and fostering peace and sustainability. I'm convinced that throughout education, we can transform lives and create a better world for future generations. We can start now. Our presentation, please. Just 1 minute, please. Can you please check if you're seeing the screen, the presentation? All right. Are you able to see the presentation now? Can somebody please help me with that?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. All right. Now, we're thrilled to share the story on how the Global Youth Community came to reality. Let's watch a short video, please. I think it's not showing up. What? Okay, we can project the video at the end. So, we recognized that young people needed more recognition, visibility, and opportunities for collaboration. So back in 2019, during the 11th UNESCO Youth Forum, 75 passionate participants gathered to brainstorm the best way to foster youth-to-youth cooperation with UNESCO. From these discussions, concrete actions were taken, leading to the creation of what we now know the GYC, a truly global, inclusive, and democratic youth-led community. So here, what is the GYC? It's the first youth-led umbrella platform, which means to create it's meant to create for youth and by youth. So our aim is to foster interaction and cooperation among all UNESCO youth-led initiatives and networks. And even beyond that, so we provide a space for young people to come together, share their ideas, and collaborate on various projects and initiatives. Moving on, so let's discuss on our two key objectives of the Global Youth Community. As you see here on the screen, first we focus on meaningful engagement of youth. So our goal is to encourage and facilitate meaningful engagement on young people within their communities and with UNESCO, of course. By doing so, we aim to foster the development and implementation to concrete actions to make a real difference. And our second key objective is that we aim to build a learning community. So we strive to emerge as an independent learning community created by and for young people from around the globe. This community is dedicated to co-learning, co-designing, and co-implementing projects and programs related to UNESCO's fields of competence. Our space is flexible and inclusive, allowing for a dynamic exchange for ideas and knowledge. Now let's talk about our vision. This is a multidimensional vision, so we first see ourselves as an incubator of global citizenship. This means that we aim to nurture and develop global citizens who are aware, engaged, and proactive. We also inspire to be a hub youth-led knowledge generation and, the most important, innovation. This is a space where young can come together to create and share new ideas and solutions. Another critical aspect of our vision is to is like a test bed, okay, of inclusive participatory governance. We provide a platform where diverse voices can be heard and actively participate in the governance processes. And we aim to be a platform on meaningful and impactful collaboration. So our goal is to facilitate partnerships and joint efforts that lead to significant and positive changes. And lastly, as you see here, we strive to be a think tank of youth policy and advocacy. This means that we're dedicated to reaching, development, and promoting policies to address needs and aspirations of young people. Now, the added values of being part of the GYC. Let's explore some of them. We have here collaboration. Being part of the GYC allows you to share ideas and contribute with projects across the globe. This collaborative spirit is at the heart of what we do. So, networking as well. We provide a platform for you to get in touch with young people and experts who are active in your area of work. And then we focus on learning. Our learning hub is designed to strengthen youth capacities by providing various educational resources and opportunities for skill development. Opportunities are another significant value. We offer chances to showcase youth-led projects, providing visibility for actions, internships, and other initiatives. And finally, we emphasize on advocacy. By joining GYC, you can participate in campaigns that unite people and make their voices heard. Thank you all for your attention. I'm now pleased to hand over Laura. She will continue with the next part of our presentation. Whenever you're ready, Laura.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I believe we still have the presentation. If we could bring that up, we'll just be moving on to the next slide following where you left off. But thank you so much for being here. And now we want to talk a little bit about the GYC in action. So during this pilot phase after the Youth Forum, we had this pilot phase of the GYC that began. And this involved an opportunity to really test different experiences that the GYC could provide, collect feedback, and listen to the initial participants that we had in the GYC. We wanted to test the scope, the relevance, the feasibility, the functionality, sustainability, narrative, and visibility, and collect information about lessons learned and create a roadmap on the path forward for the community. And then, of course, also listen to the feedback and output from participants to inform that path forward. And then if we move to the next slide. So one of those first initiatives that we had that occurred with the GYC, and before the official launch of it actually, was called the Y Action Initiative. And the idea of this was to identify and share lessons learned from volunteer youth networks worldwide responding to COVID-19, and really enhance the capacity of youth organizations to establish and manage volunteer networks, and then also showcase youth-led actions to the global community, with that aim to inspire and foster greater collaboration among global youth. And as a result, the GYC conducted interviews with youth from around the world and created 10 short videos to feature this work. Then if we go to the next slide. So the official launch of the GYC occurred a little bit later. It occurred on December 9th, 2022 on Teams, and it featured over 250 attendees of young people from all over the world. And then moving on to the next slide. So since that December 22nd or 9th date in 2022, the GYC has gained over 500 official members, and we have been leading a variety of events. And it's a group of people really willing to achieve something at a global level with a focus on a variety of topics from UNESCO. We hosted a GYC get-together event in October where people were able to interact with their members and understand, what they're looking for when they come to the GYC, creating an internal mentorship program through the Cultural Heritage Group, participating in some events on behalf of the GYC, and then developing a platform that's regularly updated to share opportunities and events related to UNESCO's fields of competence. And then something we also pride ourselves in is that we're an extremely diverse group in relation to the gender, geographical, racial, cultural diversity. And also when you think of where backgrounds people are coming from, whether they're students, educators, researchers, whatever discipline they're engaging from, really all backgrounds. And then moving to the next slide. So the overall structure of the GYC, this shows the structure and the affiliation with UNESCO. So the different units, and then the Secretariat and the broader GYC community, and then also how the steering committee members are aligned to the units. And then moving to the next slide. There should be one more. Yes. So this is just featuring, the current steering committee that we have right now, and then also some newly appointed members who just joined. So I believe we will have a Q&A, but I think that will occur after. So thank you for hearing a little bit more about the GYC, and we'll move on to the next section of the event.
Thank you, Laura, for that insightful presentation. So yeah, we will start with the panel discussion. Just let me, there, perfect, thanks. We will now move on to our panel discussion. We will focus on amplifying youth power. In these sessions, we will explore innovative strategies and impactful initiatives designed to empower youth people with the skills, resources, and opportunities they need to assume leadership roles and drive positive change. Our esteemed panelists will share their insight and experiences, offering valuable perspective on how we can collectively support the next generations of leaders. So we encourage you to actively participate by asking questions and sharing your thoughts throughout the discussion. Feel free to use the chat anytime. Our panelists in this segment are Kathleen Genty, Julia Tariello, Eunice Kenby. So we welcome you guys. Kathleen Genty is an Innovation Fellow at the United Nations High Commissioners for Refugees and Deputy International Affairs Officers at Young Democrats of America. Previously, she was a chapter director at Women of Color Advancing Peace, Security, and Conflict Transformation, and served as a public information editor to the United Nations Interior Security Force for ABI. She has been instrumental in crafting youth statements, including American National Youth Statement of Climate and Americans Youth Declaration of Human Rights. She was the winner of the Women's Foreign Policy Group in 2024 International Essay Contest and sat on the 2024 United Nations Civil Society Conference Planning Committee. She's part of the UNESCO Global Youth Community, so we welcome you. Julia Tariello graduated in October 2023 with a master's degree in international relations at the University of Milan. She's one of the 2 European Union youth delegates of the United Nations. She started her engagements with the UN in 2022 when she was selected as an Italian youth delegate to the UN. When she moved to Milan in 2021, she joined the board of directors of Milan, the student movement for the international organization, the UN Association of Italy. Since October 2023, she's been the Secretary General of Milan Committee. She gained first sight of the work of the United Nations during her internship at the NGO with ECOSOC consultative status. Her durable advocacy for education and youth engagement brought her among the speakers of the IGC conference in September 2023 as a member of the UNESCO Global Youth Community since 2022. We welcome you as well, Julia. Eunice is a dynamic and dedicated global advocate with a mission of addressing intricate international challenges. His academic achievement includes a Master in European and International Governance for the University of Geneva. Eunice's immersion in global youth policy is exemplified by his previous work in an NGO with ECOSOC consultative status, with the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the United Nations Population Fund. He's committed to bringing discipline and understanding global interconnections, has led him to assume position with many UN organizations. He is a young champion with UNHCR, youth delegate with the UNCTAD, and a member of the UNESCO GYC. He is also a fellow of Clinton Foundation and regional director of the Swiss NGO Youth Parliamentarian for Sustainable Development Goals. We welcome you as well, and we can now start our panel discussion. Can we please start with Julia?
Yes.
With your introduction, please. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation, and of course to the Global Youth Community of UNESCO for having us among the speakers, and for the International Youth Conference for hosting, of course, the SAD event. As you already said, I am 25. I'm Julia. I'm from Italy, and this year I'm serving as the European Union Youth Delegate to the United Nations. That's a program that many countries have at the United Nations, and we serve and work together with the delegation to the UN. And as you already said, I served last year with the Italian delegation as Italian UN Youth Delegate. And among all the other things, one of my priorities is education and how to foster a more equitable access to education for all, and of course youth empowerment and engagement, trying to ensure that as many delegation at the UN can include the youth delegates in their work.
Thank you so much, Julia. Now, can we have a short introduction with you, Caitlin?
Kathleen, yeah. No, it's okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to sit on this panel alongside so many other young change makers. So my name is Kathleen. I am an innovation fellow at the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And in that role, I also, similar to Julia, work a lot at the intersection of a lot of different areas of interest and different competencies that all ultimately, though maybe not expressly, are youth issues. They all kind of touch youth. So things like climate change, things like migration, that maybe on paper are not only impacting youth, but impact youth the most, and they are felt, the ramifications are felt the hardest by youth. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Now it's your turn, Eunice, please, before we start our discussion.
All right. Well, I'm Younes. I'm from Morocco. Very proud to be with you here today. I'm no stranger to IYC. Really, it's not my first time. We maintain great contacts together, I believe. So, as for my work, I believe that the youth subject has always resonated with me because, as a young person, it's one of the most important subjects that we are advocating for, because it touches us, it defines us and who we are. And I believe, like Julia and Kathleen, we all feel the need to make a change in this world. And this is why we got involved, and we encumbered the responsibility to advocate for youth, for us, and for change on the global sphere and the global arena, which led me to many affiliations with different organizations, hence UNCTAD, for example, where I represented them many times as their youth delegate in many international forums, most recently at the World Investments Forum in Dubai and the UNCTAD Youth Forum. UNHCR also resonates with me very well, since I come from the MENA region and the Middle East. And I believe that you all know about all of the current problems and crises that happens in the Middle East because of the flawed architecture of the region since many years ago. And so migration and refugee rights has always been one of the most important topics that we can talk about, which led me to become affiliated with UNHCR as a young champion once they opened their program. And so we advocated for refugees' rights, for having more access, for more opportunities, basically for refugees, because they are always, we as youth as generals, still considered as a margin on society, let alone refugees. And so unfortunately, I believe it was very, very good, but there's always a real problem that perhaps we can discuss later, which is the problem of funding. And this is a problem that the program of UNHCR has suffered from. And so in my other areas of professional work, aside from my volunteering, I worked with the youth departments with the Interparliamentary Union, where we have led one of the biggest IPU youth campaigns, which is called I Say Yes to Youth in Parliaments. And we basically want to increase the youth quota in different parliaments, as well as gender. Basically, this is one of the two pillars of the IPU. With the Clinton Foundation, it is the same thing. We have one of the biggest communities, which is called CGIU, which is the Clinton Global Initiative University, with fellows and change makers all around the world from 160 different countries. And I think that is the core of our work there today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eunice. So we'll talk in a little bit about the funding that you were talking about, which is a very important fact in youth participation. So what do you think, Eunice, are the key elements to include a grant proposal to increase the chances of security funding?
Wow, this is a very good question, but let me just first start by giving you perhaps some stats that would shed the light on many things. So just to understand the magnitude of this problem that is youth and funding, of course. Today, more than half of the world's population is under the age of 30. While young people have every opportunity and the right to participate fully in the life of their societies, they are often left on society's margins. And for us, that is something that has urgently needs to change. So they are affected by discrimination and lack of access, not only to employment and education, but foremost for me, it's the lack to being part of the decision-making process. And for us, that would define the course of our future. So 57% of the voting population are young people. 6% of the parliamentarians are under the age of 35. And 66% of young people globally feel that their governments actually does not care about what they think and what they want to change. These stats have been presented by global reports in UN agencies, so which highlights basically the urgency of action for youth. And I think I'm just gonna quote Kofi Annan here, where he said, "Any society that does not succeed in tapping into the energy and the creativity of its youth is going to be left behind." So yes, our hopes, our concerns, and our demands is to reconfirm this pressing need for us to continue amplifying youth-led action and fostering their representation in peace and security efforts, as well as their inclusion in places and processes where decisions are made central. So that's one of the most important things that we would like to talk about today, of course.
All right, thank you so much. You've shared some important statistics about how this is a problem, a youth problem for our section. So I'm going to go directly with Julia. And maybe can you please talk a little bit about what actions have you implemented to guarantee youth are represented in international forums? So we're going to be in the same line.
Yes, of course. And first of all, I want to echo what Eunice already said, of course, about the importance of recognizing that the youth are a big part of our communities. And so we have to, of course, try to involve them as much as possible in any circumstances. And so here comes my work that started in a more practical way last year with the United Nations. And how was that? Specifically, by representing a country and representing the youth of your country, you do not do so only when you are in New York in the fancy building of the United Nations, but you also have to understand what is that the youth of your country want to hear from the UN. What are the needs of the youth of your national youth? And so, together with my colleague, we started to travel across Italy to meet the young students and to have consultations with them, to have meetings, roundtables, and workshops to provide capacity building and know-how in order to understand what is that the United Nations are doing in order to include the young people. So once we gathered all of this information, we went back to the UN, and of course we spoke with our delegation and tried as much as possible to include all of these inputs in our recommendation, in our negotiations, and in our statements. And of course, I'm telling you so, but I'm not the only one who is doing this work. And as I already told you before, there are many youth delegates of different countries from different regions that are doing the same. Of course, also like linking this to the funding part. There is still a lack of representation from, for example, the MENA region or the African countries or the Asian countries. So what are we doing? We're also trying to foster this inclusion within the UN. We are speaking with the UNDESA, the Department of Social and Economic Affairs that is managing the Youth Delegate Program within the UN, in order to understand what could be the best practices and the actions in order to, encourage the member states to include the youth, because we cannot demand them to do so, but we can just urge them or suggest them to do something. But also with my colleagues from these other countries, we are also organizing other sessions specifically for the upcoming Summit of the Future, which is a really, really big event that is coming in September this year. And since we know that not all the young people can have the opportunity to go to New York, we are doing some online consultations and giving the chance to add their input. And of course, I'm also trying to advocate using social media platforms so that we can reach out to as many as young people as possible. Thank you.
Julia, thank you so much. That was pretty interesting. So yeah, that's correct. Our lack of participation in presential, but we have this type of events where we can amplify, empower, foster meaningful engagement, right? And our voices can be heard here as well. So let's make our voices heard and drive the change together. Thank you so much, Julia. Kathleen, now I'm going to ask you a related question about what we're talking. How do you think we can ensure that youth engagement within the UN is inclusive and representative of diverse backgrounds and perspectives?
Yeah, thank you. I feel like going off of what my fellow panelists said, a lot of it is funding, both like on an institutional level and also kind of on the ground level. Going off of what Julia said, a lot of times younger people from more marginalized backgrounds or from different regions that maybe don't have like the passport privilege that, I know that I'm afforded by having a blue passport, that they do end up having to miss out on events, or even if something is virtual, you have connectivity issues, or you don't have like the stability of internet to actually be able to regularly participate in things. So I think having more opportunities for funding for young people so that they don't have to sit on the sidelines as a result of something that is kind of ultimately out of their control. Um, Creating more platforms for young people, but ones that are actionable and that are more long term, as opposed to maybe just like, shorter term initiatives that peter off after a couple days, or, like youth delegacies that kind of after 3, 6, 12 months, you don't have like a sustained mechanism to remain in an ecosystem. So yeah, I think there are a lot of ways that ultimately come down to funding, accessibility, and building pathways that are sustainable and that can remain.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, I completely agree. We do need a sustainable founding, mentorship, and resources to turn our ideas into reality. Otherwise, it would just stay on a paper. And we really need a positive global change. All right, so I think we have a couple of questions from our audience that probably we could start asking at this time. Please feel free to answer any questions. Okay, so I'll be just
Can I
here.
just something add
Sure,
something
sure.
of the yeah
Perfect. Yeah,
yes
if you want
the
to add something, go ahead.
So you ask about the UN more specifically, and I think that to intensify work on priority areas of youth programming, for example, or to at least accelerate the implementation of the SDGs, many of the UN entities have developed new strategies and plans on youth, or at least have aligned their existing plans with the goals of the Youth 2030 agenda. And these active resource mobilizations efforts by UN entities to fund youth plans, perhaps some are able to track a year to year increase in fund allocation or utilization for youth programs. There's also the support for youth led organizations and initiatives, which is reflected in the establishments of several novel efforts aimed at funding youth-led groups or youth-led initiatives. I think, for example, UNCTAD is really doing a great job in this regard because of the youth action hubs initiatives that they are having. So I think the most important part for me would be leveraging private investment funds, because that would give a great path for funding, basically, which is, I think we can all agree that it's the common denominator between all youth is the lack of access to funding. I mean, I believe that all of us are very well interconnected between each other. You go to LinkedIn, you want to add a new young person, you would find plenty of contacts who already know that other person, and it's always so great to see that. But the highlight is whenever there is a big international forum or an international symposium, and you have really to want to get there, basically just to raise your voice and make your voice heard with all of the world leaders there. And this is the actual participation, which leads me to another question, by the way, but I'm coming to that. Um, Most of the times, many of my friends or colleagues cannot go. Why? Lack of funding. They do receive the invitation, formal invitation from the UN, but there is no funding, unfortunately. So you do secure your place. The selection process is very, very selective, obviously, because you have 1.8 billion people who are young, basically, and most of them are very, very engaged in all of social issues nowadays. So they would like to participate, they would like to give their voice. But unfortunately, circumstances do not help. So most of the times, many young people are not having the opportunity, even though they work really hard for it, and that's a real problem. So my question is the following: is how can we really shift the narrative from participation of youth to actual representation? That would entail a decision-making process. Thank you.
Go
I don't
ahead,
know.
Kathleen.
Yeah, I don't know. Kathleen, I don't know if you want to answer, or I don't want to take away the mic to the other. I would just be very, very brief, because it's actually it's a hard question to how to not be just mere tokens and actually be included. That's really hard, and and also for the things that you said about how we can ensure that the people, how, I mean, the selection process when you can enter the UN. I've been to the UN during the ECOSOC Youth Forum this April, and there were people that were selected. They paid the travel, they paid for the accommodation, and they were left to see the speeches and all the events from from another room with a projector, and that was not fine at all. So since me and the other delegates were really angry about how everything was dealt with, we decided that in every statement that we had, and we had the chance, the opportunity, the privilege to do so, we addressed this problem. Because in this case, we had the power to do so. We had the power to make our voices heard, even if the majority of the youth don't have this opportunity and this privilege. So I think that the point here is to make, to try to find another way to be included, because sometimes we dream of the big international fora, we dream of the UN as this unreachable entity, which is true. But at the same time, we forgot that the biggest change, the biggest impact, we can have it in our own community. So if we start from the bottom and we start to engage with other youth of our country, of our neighbor, and then we can create this little youth group and have these consultations with, I don't know, a person that we know that he's a step ahead meaning that, I don't know, have contact with a parliament of your own country. I don't know. I mean, everything should be done, I think, step by step. And this is what we are trying to do, trying to also with this conversation here, we, even if it's just between us, we know that there are many people that are listening and that hopefully will be inspired by the thing that we are saying. And so that will also find a spark to do that little step that otherwise they will be, also afraid to do so. Yeah, but I don't have a practical answer to how to avoid this mere tokenism. I don't know, maybe Kathleen, you have something to add?
It was an open question, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's a heavy question that I also don't know that I can answer. And Julia, I was also at EcoSoc. It was very chaotic. I think, though, that if youth kind of banded together and maybe had a more formal feedback mechanism that we know could reach the UN directly, that would be ideal, only because I felt a lot of young people were frustrated there, but at the same time, we didn't really know what to do with that frustration. Like some young people just maybe went the first day and then stopped going, or like ranted on Instagram or like ranted on LinkedIn. But I wish that there were a mechanism, or maybe that's something that we should create, that allows young people to have a straighter line to the UN and to actually like speak to our frustrations. Because ultimately, even if you are kind of frustrated with that system, or you were frustrated at EcoSoc, like because the UN does have this pool and this this gravity to it, that people will still sign up, to like attend those conferences, even if you go and you don't feel like it's actually meaningful, or that you have a really direct line to make a change. So yeah, I think that's really something to think about.
Thank you, Kathleen. That's correct. I saw you in the event. We had the chance to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
And I also saw Julia, she as a panelist. So to a little bit close this up, I could also add that in my journey, I faced a lot of challenges in especially securing funding. So, however, working hard and connecting with the right organizations, as I was able to become part of significant spaces like you guys in the UN ECOSOC, and as this events like this where they support opportunities here in the AYC. They're providing us opportunities to speak up, and the GYC has been as well a very important instrumental part of my process. So, answering a little bit a question of what's been asked on the chat, we have that. What do you think is the reason that youth, mostly from developing countries, are not being given the chances of being in the big decision making process? How do you think we can change that? Maybe Jan, Julia, go ahead. Thank
No,
you.
sorry. I just want to say something, not answering this question, but
Okay.
we have to remember that the United Nations are made from 193 countries. So we cannot expect the UN to do something if the countries that the compounds the UN are not doing the same thing internally. And this is really unfortunate and hard to understand. But for example, I have to demand that internship, for example, are paid, but I firstly have to demand the same, but in my own country. Because Italy, the majority of firms, they do not pay their interns. So first I have to go to the government and protest and communities, whatever, and demand for paid internship, while doing the same for the UN. Of course, this goes in the same direction. There is no exclusion from one and the other thing. So when it's not really an answer to this question, but I think that it's not that the UN don't want to give the opportunities for developing country, because this is not the case. There are many opportunities for young people that are coming from developing countries. For example, you have the JPOs, or you have the fellows, the PGA fellows. You have the young professional programs, and these are basically directed only for young people from developed country, and everything is funded. So the point here is, for those opportunities, the UN are really trying to include everyone. But for the youth delegate programs, for example, there are some countries that are not really they don't have a really democratic and transparent process in their own government, in their own country. So we cannot expect the UN to go to those countries and say, you have to include young people, because they cannot do so. So we have to remember this and just, I'm angry as much as you are, but it's sometimes we forgot that 193 plus 2 are still, they compound the UN. So it's hard.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, the change starts from us, beginning from us. So thank you so much, Julia, for those insights. Now, Junis, I think you wanted to say something before we continue with the next.
Perhaps taking on the question that was asked on Facebook. But totally agree with everything Julia said. It thrills me actually whenever we have a discussion about youth in any forum. All of the people in the room, the young people in the room, they do have the same mindset, and that's something really good because we agree on the same things basically. So could you just please forward our voices to like the UN directly? Is that something we can do? Anyway, yeah, this is a great question about the reason that youth, mostly from developing countries, are not being given chances of being in big decision makings. Great. Well, actually, this is a doctoral question. You can write a thesis about this and still not answer it perfectly. So I'll try to summarize this as much as possible, but also try to answer it quite efficiently. So basically, youth from developing countries often face a lot of barriers to being involved in major decision-making processes due to a combination of systemic, educational, socioeconomic factors. which could include limited access to quality education, for example, and training. Uh, Definitely lack of resources and opportunities for skill development. Perhaps sometimes there's also cultural norms that undervalue youth contributions, institutional structures that do not prioritize or facilitate youth engagements. And of course, the most flagrant issue, I believe, would be political and economic instability in many developing countries, which could further restrict opportunities for young people to participate in decision-making processes. And the world we are currently living in today, which is defined by rapid change, but also interconnectedness and uncertainty, turmoil, of course. Um, I think where social problems are deep and urgent, change making must become the new literacy. And such a shift is significant and will require a movement that fundamentally re examines how young people grow up and learn, and how we see and support them today as change agents. In my mind, it will require more than any specific curriculum or opportunity or skill sets, but rather a new mindset and new priorities. And this is why I'm very happy with everything Caitlin and Julie and you are saying, because we are already health there. We already have the mindset. So the only thing left is to actually gather all of these spreaded youth-led initiatives and youth groups and youth communities, you know, uh, in the four corners of the planet, and try to join our efforts together and create one big movement, basically with one voice that could channel our concerns and our needs to the international community and to world leaders worldwide. So yeah, that's my take.
Such inspiring words. Thank you so much, Eunice. I wish we had 2 hours. This is very interesting. Unfortunately, we have 1 hour. But I want to thank you all for your important insights. This was a very engaging discussion. So I would like to give you guys 30 seconds for your closing remarks, insights. So we can start with Kathleen, please.
Yeah, sure. I'll probably use my closing remarks to just tack on to that point, because I think what Julie and Eunice said is true, but I also feel like there is a certain level of maybe financial influence in a way, because the nations that are the largest contributors to the UN do have like a certain level of privilege in that way, because as someone who is in New York, like there's a certain level of proximity I have to kind of just pop up at UN summits, which I think also should be taken into account. But yeah, I really enjoyed being on this panel. I think I love learning from my peers, and going off what you said earlier, Eunice, every time I am in a room with other young people, I just leave so inspired. And I think we all do have really similar goals, similar missions, and we all want to see a change in the world. And so I am really happy to have been given a chance to contribute, even just a little bit. Thank you.
Julia, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again to all for including us. And also, Eunice, you said something before, saying that it's great to see that all the young people have the same mindset, or at least the same priorities. And I think that that's the best part of our generation, because for, I don't know, our parents' generation, they had different priorities all over the world, because they were experiencing, of course, different part of the history. And this is still happening. However, the challenges that we are experiencing today are perceived as a global challenges. You are, of course, there are, for example, some people that live in the islands, the small islands countries, they will perceive the climate change more more hardly than, for example, me in Italy. But still, we are all fighting for stop the climate change and stop the pollution and so on. So that's the best part, and this is also something that I want to leave the audience with, to continue fighting and advocating for your priorities, because you will find for sure another young person like you that will follow you in your fight. And I'm also sure that you will find some non-young people that will listen to you and they will help you and join you with this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would really like to extend my gratitude to all of you, our speakers, our panelists, our attendees, to their participation today. Let's remember the power of collaboration and the impact we can make when we work together. Thank you everyone again for your participation, and please don't forget to visit our webpage and joining our community. We hope this event has inspired you to actively engage with the UNESCO Global Youth Community. Please join us for future projects. Thank you so much, guys.